Well, hello there. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. On this week's show, we'll catch up with the Minister of Agriculture and MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie, Greg Morrow, about how his department is reaching out to a new generation of farmers and farm owners. We'll also talk to the Deputy Mayor of Port Hawkesbury, Jason Aucoin, about 3 recent motions from the town's Planning Advisory Committee that have a lot of discussion happening within Port Hawkesbury. And we'll catch up on some recent items from the Richmond Municipal Council table, including a deep dive on what's involved in getting an exemption from the municipal noise bylaw for a music festival taking shape in western Richmond County. But we begin with an update on the situation involving non-resident property owners and a sudden U-turn in provincial policy on how much tax these property owners are going to be paying to the government. As you may recall, Premier Tim Houston recently scrapped a plan to raise the non-resident property taxes for Nova Scotia property owners. And even though the deed property tax is going to remain in place for these property owners, this regards a complete 360 from measures introduced in the first provincial budget for new Finance Minister Alan McMaster. Now, we had Minister McMaster on Telile 24/7 just a few weeks ago talking about his budget and talking about why these measures were necessary. So I thought it might be a good idea to bring him back to Telile 24/7 to explain what involved. So I thought it might be a good idea to bring him back to Telile 24/7 to explain what was involved in this sudden change of heart from the provincial government. However, I received notification from Minister McMaster's spokesperson in Halifax, Gary Andrea, stating that the minister is, quote, respectfully declining an interview at this time. According to spokesperson Gary Andrea, as the Premier stated, the reputation of our province is more important than any policy, and that is why the government is no longer moving forward with the non-resident property tax, end quote. So there you have it. There is the response from the Finance Minister about this sudden change in policy. But what do municipal officials think about it? Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette was one of the first to put her foot down in terms of trying to change this policy. We caught up with her just after the most recent regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. Here's how Warden Mombourquette responded to the sudden change of heart from the provincial government on non-resident property taxes.
We were very concerned that this was going to limit our ability, to use property taxes as our sole revenue source, which it is for municipalities. It was going to, basically roll up the welcome mat for newcomers to Richmond County. We know, there are multiple business owners that contacted me who were telling me that their business models would fail with that new resident tax. Some on the principle of the thing, and of course, for us as a municipality, on the principle of the thing. We were not consulted on this, and how it was rolled out with such vigor and strength was very, very concerning. So really, really pleased with the provincial government for listening to the concerns of residents, part-time residents, and of course municipalities when we expressed deep concern about how this was being rolled out and the strength with which it was being rolled out so quickly. I think I'll be looking forward to having future conversations with the Premier about it, and certainly with our MLA. We had communicated, although we hadn't gotten to the letter, it's certainly our intent to send that letter, and our concerns had been already relayed through the MLA and up the chain. So it's really nice to see that the provincial government is listening when these types of things, when these types of things come down the pipe and have so many unintended consequences. I think the intention there was a really good one, but there were so many unintended consequences with this one that it was good to see the reversal. And when it comes to the deed transfer tax, that is still in place. if that's the compromise that we're living with for right now, then, you know, that's one that I feel that we can live with. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's that ongoing cost of maintaining your property here that was of the most concern to us.
So it seems like there's less concern among the general public and the property owners and business owners about the D transfer tax remaining?
Yeah, I think, you know, don't get me wrong, there's a level of concern that, you know, the whole thing has, I'm sure, cooled sales, and I'm sure there's still a level of concern about the strength of that deed transfer tax. But at the end of the day, it's that ongoing cost that was really going to be crippling to many people, whether they were, you know, ancestral homeowners, or they, you know, were realtors, or they were, you know, in any kind of situation where you know, they weren't living here full time but also contributing to our communities. It was a real blow to them. And so I think this is a compromise that we can all live with.
It's no secret that for a long time in several northern and western Richmond County communities, getting decent service for cell and mobile phones and the internet has been difficult in recent years. That's been the case for a long time in places like Grand River, Forshoe, Framboise, and Johnstown, as well as Dundee, St. George's Channel, and West Bay Road. Now, there are other problems that are recently occurring in these areas too, specifically dealing with landlines and the inability for residents of these areas to use their landlines during power outages. So, Richmond Municipal Council recently reached out to see if they could speak to officials with Bell Alliant about this. And in conversations with Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau, they wound up getting more than just a simple conversation. They actually wound up having a face-to-face meeting with a senior Bell Alliant executive. Here's Warden Amanda Mombourquette explaining the situation at the Richmond Council chambers during the most recent regular council meeting held on Tuesday, just a couple of nights ago.
It was regarding the issues about landline service during power outages in areas of St. George's Channel and Grand River. I think Dundee was in there, and maybe some areas of Johnstown as well. So as you will recall, we had passed the motion to ask to our MLA if he would be interested in a joint communication. And in reaching out to him, he actually invited us to participate in a meeting with Bell's Senior Manager of Government Affairs in the Atlantic region. It was a great opportunity, so the Deputy Warden and I jumped on it, and we both, along with MLA Trevor Boudreau, met with her in early May. It was a great opportunity to express our concerns directly about some of the items that were brought up at council, and we may have snuck a few other issues in there as well. So couldn't miss the opportunity for sure. As a follow-up, the Deputy Warden provided specific civic addresses of impacted properties to the MLA and to Bell to help track the issue, and they've committed to following up with us to discuss the matter, specifically related to the landline service and what happens with it going out during power outages. So the correspondence on this, I think, in terms of our action list, can be marked as complete, because we have made that correspondence, but we just wanted to let council know that we've been able to take this a step further to establish a relationship with senior management at Bell, and wanted to just give that update to council because I think it's an excellent connection for us to have, and many thanks to our MLA for working with us on that. So.
I spoke to Warden Amanda Mombourquette following Richmond County's regular meeting on Tuesday in Arishat. She told me that while the conversation with Bell centered mainly around issues with landlines during power outages in certain communities, the ongoing problem of wireless technology and internet service in the same communities also came up.
Certainly when we had an opportunity to sit down with the MLA and with Bell, the Deputy Warden and I used that opportunity to our advantage for sure to make sure that we were advocating for residents on a variety of issues. We talked about the cell signal in places like Loch Lomond.
Do you think it was an eye-opener for her and for the Bell officials that this type of thing was happening in places like Grand River and Johnstown and West Bay Road?
So I wouldn't say it was an eye-opener. I think they're very aware of the state of their network, but when it comes to really specific areas and right down to the granular civic address level, it is a little more difficult for them to be able to stay ahead of that kind of thing. And so she was really pleased that we were able to provide them with civic addresses to look into. While
the councillors sitting around the table in Arishat on Tuesday evening were pleased to hear of these conversations with Bell Alliant, District 2 Councillor Michael Digdon suggested there are parts of his Isle Madame district that could use some attention as well.
I would have liked to have seen some in District 2's.
Well,
listed
actually,
in there, however.
I actually did discuss a matter on McCacken Road with her because there had been some brush cutting there as a result of the I think of the broadband expansion, and so we were able to follow back up with the service provider to start getting that cleared up. So I had your back. It's all good. We talked about some of the brush cutting work that had been happening on McCacken Road, and just making sure that those kinds of issues are being brought to their attention and being addressed. And so it's, it was a really good step forward to begin that kind of advocacy at a senior level, I think.
Do you have addresses where there are issues with landlines not working when the power's out in your district? If there is, and you forward me the addresses, I can send them along. That's what Councillor Sampson had done, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And while Richmond officials are pleased with the conversations that have already happened with Bell Alliant representatives, they're also optimistic that more of these talks are on the way.
And she was really fantastic in providing her contact information. We were able to kind of bring up that issue, and she has committed to looking into it and getting back to us in terms of, whether or not there need to be any equipment improvements or what the plans are for equipment improvements, et cetera. So although she wasn't making any specific commitments, it was a really, I think, productive conversation, and we were able to follow up with her with specific civic addresses for people who had reported the issue that she can look into directly.
We haven't heard anything back from her yet,
Not
but
yet, yeah.
she was away for a week, so I think that
Yeah.
usually will hold up things a little bit. But.
Yeah.
Let's shift over now to Port Hawkesbury municipal politics. 3 recent motions coming out of Port Hawkesbury's Planning Advisory Committee have stirred up quite a bit of talk around town, and in particular, 2 motions that deal with rezoning that would allow people to take new tenants into their existing properties, or to even build a separate property on their land to be able to take these tenants in. It's been proposed that this could help alleviate some housing crunches in Port Hawkesbury, but not everybody is on board. To discuss the situation, I've brought in the head of Port Hawkesbury's Planning Advisory Committee, who is also the deputy mayor of the town, Jason Aucoin, to discuss this issue. And we're pleased to welcome back to Telile 24/7, the deputy mayor of Port Hawkesbury and also the chair of Port Hawkesbury's Planning Advisory Committee. He is Jason Aucoin. Thank you so much, sir, for coming back and joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
No trouble at all. We wanted to bring you in because there were a number of motions that came forward from the Planning Advisory Committee that have gone through the town council stage and are now getting ready to go to public hearings. And one of the reasons that we're curious about this is because a couple of these motions having to do with trying to rezone a couple of areas in Port Hawkesbury from R1 to R2 to be able to allow more residential dwellings, or at least more residential space. So can you explain a little bit about what that zoning change would mean, and tell us a little bit about the motions themselves and the specific areas of town that they impact?
So I will start off by saying there's no secret that we have a housing shortage in Port Hawkesbury, actually right across Canada. Let's call it as it is. So right now we're looking at McLaughlin Drive, Grants Pond, and parts of the new subdivision that are not developed as of yet, to move them into an R2 zone. So the reason for this is that it gives the opportunity for people to either put a granny suite on, potentially an accessory building, or a basement apartment. And what that should do is open up some new living quarters, but also it's kind of a way that we can grow our town, because right now with the way the world is and the economy is, and we think that interest rates are going to be going up shortly, young people starting out might be a little nervous to jump into a mortgage. Whereas if they were able to have a rental income in the basement, that would help subsidize the mortgage. We get younger people buying homes in Port Hawkesbury, paying taxes in Port Hawkesbury, living and working and playing in Port Hawkesbury. And I think it's just, it's a small way to try to, I won't say correct or fix the housing issue, but it could make a little dent in it. And it keeps people in Port Hawkesbury. It gives people a place to live. So right now, that's the mindset. We actually have a special public meeting coming up. And from there, council will discuss some of the issues that are have been brought forward to council and some of the issues that council have with the recommendations that were brought from the Planning Advisory Committee. After that meeting, we can decide then if we're going to move ahead with 1, 2, or all 3 of the motions that were brought forward. We could amend some of them. You know, it's good to have public input. This is why we do these things. We do it because we have to, but also because we want to. We don't want to be making decisions for the public without hearing from the public. Now, that being said, you know, there are some tough decisions to make here, and I know no matter which way we go with these, we will not please 100% of the people. And that's just, you know, we've signed up for this, we knew that, and now we have some tough decisions to make, and we'll make the best decision that we feel is best for the town.
Jason, I wanted to pick up on a point you'd made just a couple of moments ago, just more for clarification than anything else. So what this rezoning, if it goes through, would mean for these specific areas is that buildings that are in existence could be expanded to be able to take more tenants in. It's not something that would allow new buildings to be constructed. Can you give us some clarification there?
We're looking at allowing an ensuite or an additional building as long as it fits within the building codes and the setbacks and on the same property. So, you know, that's where we get the nanny suites, or the so-called nanny suites, come into play. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and you know, we open up basement apartments potentially.
You talked a bit about the housing crisis that's happening here in Port Hawkesbury and around Nova Scotia. Did you get a sense that landlords in Port Hawkesbury, or even potential landlords in Port Hawkesbury, and by that I would mean even people who would be looking to do something as simple as subletting, were they coming to town council asking for this? Did you get a sense that there was a real wave of public demand for this to happen, or was this part of the town's overall housing strategy going forward?
I wouldn't say we had a flock of people coming looking to move from an R1 to an R2. But this is something that we've been discussing in the Planning Advisory Committee, which I chair. And it's something that I have no problem saying that I brought forward, because I did have a few people ask me about it, you know, and I'm hearing even today, you know, we don't want to change from an R1 to an R2. We like the way things are. We like our quiet neighborhood, and I totally respect that, and I totally understand that. But the truth of the matter is that, you know, our numbers have been declining in Port Hawkesbury. So the way we're moving right now, or have been in the recent past, obviously is not working. So something needs to change, and I'm not saying that this will change. I'm not saying this is the change that'll make the big difference. It's something that's put in front of council for us to have a discussion on, to get some public input, and to make a decision.
Now, you mentioned some of the commentary that you've been receiving, and the sense I get is that since this started making its way into the public over the past couple of weeks, that there has been response from the public. Are you able to sum up what that response has been like on either side of it? What can you say about how people have been reacting?
Well, we've got definitely two different sides of responses. There's no doubt about that. Some of the people that would like to take advantage of being able to create some extra income and help along that way are obviously very supportive. And those who feel that it's not a great idea, or it's going to depreciate the value of their property or homes, you know, it's the total opposite. They don't want to hear about it. But you know, this is why we have public meetings, and this is why we invite the public to come to our meetings and to give their opinions, to ask the questions, to get clarification. You know, there were some comments made to me today that I didn't understand where they came from. So I definitely invited these people to come have a conversation with council at the meeting and get some clarification.
Well, I want to ask you now, if this doesn't go through, or for that matter, even if it does go through, it's important to point out that this is just one part of Port Hawkesbury Town Council and yourself as head of the Planning Advisory Committee addressing the housing issue and the affordable housing issue in Port Hawkesbury. And I know the mayor has stated a couple of times that Town Council has been in consultation with potential developers that could be looking at setting up affordable housing at different parts of the town. What's your sense on where we go from here, one way or another, if these particular motions pass or if they don't pass? What are some other aspects of the housing situation in town that have you looking positively towards the future?
Well, that's a great question, Adam, and I thank you for that, because in the last few days, some of the people in a certain subdivision that are not necessarily in supportive of this idea have said to me, well, why don't you spend your time getting developers here? Why doesn't the town build housing? So it's an easy answer, and it's an honest answer. For the first 16 months I was on council, my main focus was trying to get developers here to Port Hawkesbury. I've met with many developers. We've met with council with many developers. Our staff is constantly meeting with developers, and we're putting a great effort forward to get developers here. So I do see some traction coming, and it's very positive. So some of the areas that are included in this rezoning is for that purpose. You know, there's some, I can't say a whole lot of, without giving too much away that I'm not allowed to, but you know, we've got developers looking here and looking at different areas and with different ideas. So this is part of the reason why this is brought forward. And it's important for people to understand that the town of Port Hawkesbury is not in the business of housing. I explained it to one individual. They asked me how come Port Hawkesbury, the town didn't just go and build a 30-unit senior complex, low income. I said, well, we could, but we'd have to raise taxes about 300%. We wouldn't be very popular if we did that. That was the end of the conversation. But that's, you know, that's just what it is. And people understand, some people understand and some may not know. We can't just donate land to developers. That's been something I've been asked in the past. How come Port Hawkesbury doesn't donate land to developers to get people in or give them a lower tax rate? Well, that's not really fair to the current landlords we have here right now for a lower tax rate, and or the residents for that matter. And we're not allowed to do that anyway unless we create a special zone. We're not allowed to give land away to developers. You know, there's some things we can do through the Municipal Government Act with not-for-profits, but yourself, Adam, if you were a developer and you came to me and said, Jay, I need 5 acres of land because I want to put this building up and make a profit, I would have to say, sorry, Adam, we can't do that.
Well, apart from housing issues, Jason, one of the motions that's also come out of the Planning Advisory Committee for Port Hawkesbury has to do with the potential distillery development here in the town. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been asked to do in terms of the Planning Advisory Committee and what the town is considering right now?
Yes, sure, Adam. So it was brought to the Planning Advisory Committee for a micro distillery on Granville Street. And, you know, with the way we're looking at developing our waterfront and, you know, investing some money in the waterfront area, this would be a very nice add-on to the waterfront. So what we've been asked to do is to consider allowing a distillery, changing the zoning to allow a distillery on the Granville Street, in the Granville Street zone. So it won't be just one section if we allow this. It will be the whole Granville Street, which I think is important to point out. And the resident that wants to do this is he's very excited with the possibility of the opportunity to have a micro distillery and to share his product in the town of Port Hawkesbury.
Right. So when will this come up for formal discussion? I know there's a public meeting set up for what we previously discussed. Is that coming up at the same meeting or will it be a separate issue?
Okay, so on May 26th.
Oh, May 26th. Okay.
At 5:30.
Okay.
In the Shannon studio is our special public meeting. This will also be discussed. All three motions will be discussed there. And then on June 7th at a regular council meeting, it will be decided by then if we're going ahead with any of them, all three of them, some of them, a modification to some of them, but that's when the first public hearing is scheduled.
Deputy Mayor Jason Aucoin, thank you once again for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Adam.
All right. Jason Aucoin is the Deputy Mayor of Port Hawkesbury and the head of Port Hawkesbury's Planning Advisory Committee. We've been speaking to him via Zoom today. Stay tuned for more of Telile 24/7 in just a moment. When Richmond Municipal Councillor Michael Digdon was suspended for a month with pay based on actions deemed to be in violation of the county's Municipal Code of Conduct, many county residents wondered why the municipality didn't exact a further discipline on Councillor Digdon. Well, as it turns out, Richmond's Municipal Code of Conduct and Nova Scotia's province-wide Municipal Government Act have specific limits on how much a council can discipline its own members when they're found to be in violation of their codes of conduct. How is the county going to deal with this? Well, at the most recent regular meeting of Richmond Council, councillors voted to contact the Nova Scotia government and as well the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities to see what options are available in terms of expanding the powers that council has to be able to deal with these situations. I spoke with Warden Amanda Mombourquette after that council meeting on Tuesday. Here's what she had to say.
So, I know that there's a provincial working group that is working really hard on this matter. Certainly at our most recent NSFM conference this spring, it was a topic of conversation, and so it's clear that work's being done. But at this stage of the game, because it's still in development, we also felt it was an opportunity to really advocate to the minister that perhaps there's a larger role for municipal affairs in how province-wide code of conduct might be rolled out. Because it's really difficult to ask a council to investigate itself, difficult to ask an employee to investigate its employer, which would be a council, and so I think we really would want a third-party objective kind of perspective on that kind of thing, because the way it is right now, number one, we don't have our code of conduct policy as, even though we have one as a municipality, it's not enshrined in the Municipal Government Act yet. So we don't really have a level of authority there when it comes to issuing sanctions. But at the same time, even when we do get there and the regulations are in place at the provincial level, it really does need an objective third party to take a look at that. Someone with expertise, and I think along with that needs to come training for municipal affairs, similar to how they conduct training for new councillors on conflict of interest and a variety of other things. We really need to make sure that code of conduct is part of that training.
In the early stages of the suspension of District 2 Councillor Michael Digdon, Warden Mombourquette told Telile 24/7 that many members of the public may have been unaware of just how little room to move that the municipality had, thanks to the provisions of Nova Scotia's Municipal Government Act and the provisions of Richmond County's own Code of Conduct. However, she feels that she and her council colleagues have learned a lot about the limitations of provincial and municipal legislation in terms of disciplining a councillor for a breach, and she hopes that the current discussions happening at the provincial and local levels will help the public understand just what needs to be done to have further discipline of a councillor found to be in violation of the Code of Conduct locally.
Oh, I think we all understand that a little bit better now. Certainly coming in, I definitely didn't have a full handle on it, I will tell you point blank. And so this has been a really, a learning process for everyone. And so, I think going forward, we're raising that awareness about what we can and cannot do. There are certain things that are just outside of our authority, and that's just simply the way it is right now. And I think it's probably the way it's going to be. We need to be respectful when someone is democratically elected, that they were put there by the people, and so it becomes a very difficult situation for us to make any changes to that kind of structure. But at the same time, I really do think that our awareness has all been increased now, and I think as a full council, we're all going to be moving forward with that kind of built awareness and understanding of the code of conduct and what it means. But like I said, at the end of the day, we need to do some work on it, and so I'm looking forward to bringing it back to policy and bylaw to try to add some clarity in there, so that again, if something comes up before the provincial working group has finished their work, we have something, a stronger tool upon which to base our decision.
It's been a busy spring for farmers across Nova Scotia, and as it turns out, it's also been a busy time for Nova Scotia's Minister of Agriculture, Greg Morrow. The MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie has been busy with a flurry of announcements in recent days, including expansion of Nova Scotia's Community Pastors Project and adding some people to a brand new Youth Council for Agriculture, including a face that you're probably familiar with. To get the skinny on all of this, I sat down with Greg Morrow just a few days ago, and we caught up with him in Guysborough County via Zoom. Here's our conversation with the Agriculture Minister right now. And we're pleased to welcome back to Telile 24/7, Nova Scotia's Minister of Agriculture and the MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie. He is Greg Morrow. Greg, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Adam. Always a pleasure to be on Telile 24/7.
Well, it's good to have you here, and we're bringing you in today as the growing season is really kicking in around the province, but also as well as there have been a flurry of announcements coming out of your department. I'm curious about this one in particular. Your office has established a youth council for agriculture, naming several people from all the way across the province, including a couple from our local area. But why don't we start with just the basic description of why the Youth Council for Agriculture is important and why you felt this was the right thing to do at this time?
Sure, Adam. Well, I mean, it's the Youth Council for Agriculture is it's really exciting. It's new, first of its kind. I really wanted a forum to hear for me to hear innovative ideas from young people from a wide variety of agricultural backgrounds from one end of the province to the other, and we really do have that. We're looking for council members to share their solutions and ideas around making agriculture sustainable and attractive to the next generation of producers and agricultural entrepreneurs. And I really think that their insights will help shape our policies and programs as we gear up for the next round of federal provincial funding in 2023.
It's been said for years, Greg, that succession planning in the agricultural industry is so important. We've heard the stories again and again about the idea that the family farms aren't being passed on. How important do you feel it is in this respect to be able to bring younger voices in and to be able to hear how they might be able to take part in this industry going forward?
Yeah, it's so important. This is the next generation of a very important industry in our province. And when I looked around the table yesterday, I've already had a chance to meet some of these people's parents, and they are the next in line to take over the operation. And this is a great chance to get a fresh new perspective from the younger generation on why they want to continue on and the challenges they face in doing so.
One of the people that is going to be joining the others on this youth council is a face and a name that many of our Telile viewers may be familiar with, that being Courtney Schmidt from Port Hood, who spent years, of course, with the Galloping Cows enterprise up there. Can you tell me a little bit about what having even just one voice like Courtney's, let alone a whole table full, will mean for these discussions?
Absolutely. I mean, we had a chance to talk to Courtney before our first meeting and just kind of make acquaintances. And of course, we worked in the same building at one point in Port Hawkesbury when she did some work with the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce and I was at the Hawk. So we had a little bit of a connection there. But you don't have to go too far to find somebody who recognizes Galloping Cows and all the good work they've been doing, not just from a value-added standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint as well. Everybody remember when their product was included with the Oscar package a couple of years ago. Yes. So that was very exciting. So to have someone like Courtney with her ability and her youthful enthusiasm and perspective, to have that right across the table is very exciting. It's a great opportunity for the industry.
Greg, we also wanted to speak to you this week because your department recently made a big addition to the Community Pastors program that Nova Scotia Agriculture has been doing for quite a while. To be more specific, through the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, the Agriculture Department purchased 2,500 hectares of land in Cape John, which is in Pictou County. Can you explain the importance of having this new land and why the community pasture program is helpful to Nova Scotia in the first place?
This is the largest addition in decades to our community pasture land for farmers. And so what these are pastures are owned by the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, and they're leased and operated by independent cooperatives run by volunteers dedicated to the beef industry and the farmers who use the community lands to raise cattle.
And we have a few of those locally here. There's one in Little Harbor, Richmond County, just outside of Lordways. And there are a few in different parts of Inverness County, including Cape Maubu and up in Cheticamp, those areas. So can you tell us a bit about what that's done for the agricultural industry to be able to have these community pastures set aside? How has that helped locally, and how could it help provincially?
Yeah, it gives it gives more space for cattle, for for producers to put their cattle. There's also Maplebrook in Inverness County, and you mentioned Cape Maubu and Cheticamp. There's a number across the province. And yeah, it's land where people can it sort of frees up land on their own farms where they can keep their cattle, and in that way it saves some space, and it helps that way.
Greg, we're now in the third week of May. Of course, we're headlong into the growing season, or what would be the traditional growing season. You've been talking to agricultural associations and federations of agriculture around the province in your capacity as the minister. What's the sense you're getting as you're looking ahead to this year and looking ahead to agriculture in this neck of the woods? How are the farmers feeling, basically?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the job, Adam, is to get out on farms and meet people one-on-one and have those conversations about not just their successes but their challenges. And I was actually in Kings County for a couple of days this week and had some really good conversations. There's some difficult conversations as well. As everyone's well aware, the input costs that farmers are facing right now, from diesel to fertilizer to everything to packaging materials, cardboard, that sort of thing. So those are challenges, but the vast majority of people I talk to in this industry are optimistic, and that's so refreshing that they take their challenges, but they face them head on, and they're doing what they love, and they're providing a vital service for the people of this province.
But before we wrap up here, Greg, I just want to ask a couple of basic questions concerning your role as the MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie. We've just wrapped up a busy legislature session. Of course, there's been lots to talk about, particularly the provincial budget. But what's your take on how things went, both for you and your government and for the atmosphere overall in the legislature during the April session? How do you feel it went?
Yeah, it was a very busy and productive session from a government standpoint. I think we passed 31 pieces of legislation, including the Financial Measures Act, which is huge. There were certainly some long nights, some long days, and as it does, tension rises, especially near the end of the session. But overall, very successful, and glad to accomplish what we accomplished, and very happy to be back out in my constituency and meeting people here on the ground.
Yes, you're coming to us from the St. Mary's Lions Hall in Sherbrooke today, so we're glad to see that you're back in Guysborough County. Obviously, you went into the budget process with a bit of a wish list for your riding, especially in terms of road repair. Do you feel like you and your constituents got what you wanted from your caucus colleague, the Minister of Finance, Alan McMaster, in terms of what's available for Guysborough-Tracadie in this budget?
Yeah, I think we're very realistic here on what we can do. Mr. McMaster only has so much money to spend and pass around, and this budget really is focused on healthcare. There's a lot of spending there. We've had some good news in Guysborough with the arrival of new doctors, and full credit to the foundation team there that did the work to bring them in. But in terms of wish lists, this really is our first budget, and there's more work to do. We 3 more years ahead, and there's going to be a lot of good work taking place. Everybody wants to talk about roads, especially after the winter we had with freeze thaw. It's really done a number on them, and there's a lot of work to be done there, and we're really identifying some key areas. I know, going back to back to the fall, and their one campaign promise was to double the rim budget, the gravel road budget from 20 million to 40 million, and we did that, and we saw some more work in the fall, and there's going to be some additional work in the spring and summer with that. But I was pleased to have the Public Works Minister, Kim Masland, join me through a tour of the constituency. She wanted to get out and see some of the roads herself firsthand, and certainly agreed that there's quite a bit of work that needs to be done here. We took her a drive down Route 16, which is kind of the main trunk into the county, and there's work that needs to be done there, and some of it is on tap for the upcoming construction season around the Lincolnville area, but more needs to be done. And went through different areas of the county, down through Drumhead, Goulborough, Isaacs Harbor, up into Whitehead, that area, Port Felix, Charles Cove, and up back through the 316. So she got to see that firsthand, and I look forward to working with her more on getting some very important and much needed road work done.
And you and I have talked about this, the construction project for the intersection along Highway 104 through Alts Cove, getting up towards the Cape Road to Mulgrave. Can we expect work on that to begin soon?
So that work, we were able to get that put on the 5-year highway plan for this construction season. So we're very, very excited about that. There's a bit of an issue with the railway and getting that moved along with the intersection. So I've been in lots of conversation with Public Works here locally on the ground, and I certainly want to see that done as soon as possible. There may be some delays on that aspect, but hopefully we're going to see some work start sooner rather than later, and possibly finish off that piece later as it can be done.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to seeing how that comes together. In the meantime, Greg Morrow, we've covered a lot of ground in a short time, as I thought we might. Did you want to add anything else just before we wrap up here?
No, just always a pleasure to join you. And I know last time we chatted, I was in Mulgrave at the Mulgrave Museum, and just showing the size of this constituency. I keep saying it's the largest geographically in the province. So last time we were in Mulgrave, this time we're in St. Mary's. Who knows next time where we'll meet up?
Well, more power to you for being able to get out and hit the road for this kind of a constituency, both in Guysborough and Eastern Antigonish County. And we appreciate you taking some time here on a busy day in Sherbrooke to help us out, Greg. So thanks once again for joining us for Telile 24/7.
Thanks, Adam. Always a pleasure.
All right. Greg Morrow is Nova Scotia's Minister of Agriculture and the MLA for Guysborough-Tracadie. We've been speaking to him today at St. Mary's Lions Hall in Sherbrooke via Zoom. Stay tuned for more of Telile 24/7 in just a moment. Let's take a look at a recent conversation held at the Richmond Municipal Council table concerning the county's noise bylaw and whether exemptions can be made under that bylaw for major music events. There's a brand new electronic music festival called Zenergy setting up shop at the Inspiration Point Lodge in West Bay Road. And organizers for that event have reached out to the county to see if they might be able to get a little bit of leeway in terms of how long into the night the music can continue on the third weekend in June. So here's some council footage from the meeting held on Tuesday that includes some conversation with one of the organizers of the Zenergy Festival, Terry McEachern, and the council table itself reacting to what's been proposed by the organizers of this music festival.
So, as council is aware, the application was submitted a few days ago, but we're asking council to look at entertaining the request. The organizer, Jeremy McLaughlin of Epic Trip Productions, had contacted EDBC to find out if any zoning restrictions or permits would be needed, and has now just recently checked with the county as well, and has been informed of the requirement to have a noise exemption for the type of event that he's looking to host. I did want to provide some clarifying information, and I do want to just recognize that we have Terry McEachern in the audience with us this evening, who is the event producer. But I did want to provide some information that I obtained from both Jeremy and Terry regarding the event. The owners of Inspiration Point are not the actual hosts of this. It's a concept that Jeremy brought forward to them, and of course since then he has definitely invested in the model. Jeremy retained Terry McCachran as the event producer, and he's got a long history of event production in the region and beyond. I did want to clarify too, and I think thank you to Karen and Dawn, for providing clarity and some of the information that is not related to the Evolve Festival, and has no connection with Evolve. It's a brand new event. I also wanted to provide clarity because there was some question around the facility previously operating many years ago as a hunting lodge, and it's not that anymore. It's set up more as a glamping kind of experience. I did have some questions. I know that we're here specifically to discuss the noise bylaw, but I did want to share some information with council just because they were sharing it, and I thought it would be of interest related to safety, health, environment, and sound. So they've engaged with both fire services and ambulance. They've been notified. They plan to have medics on site and have a harm reduction area, so a medical tent with people experienced in treatment if anything did kind of come up. They have an emergency evacuation plan where police, fire, and ambulance would be able to enter the property unobstructed, have a turnaround area, and exit through another driveway. There are 15 fire extinguishers and running water at the site in terms of fire prevention. Police have agreed to set up a checkpoint to ensure that there's no, driving under the influence for this kind of thing. They've hired event security, 15 people, and an additional complement of I think it was 3 off-duty police and 8 off-duty security guards that will supplement that presence. So certainly have invested in security. Jeremy has also told me that he will be advertising his direct line and would share that with us too in case a point of contact is needed on site during the event for any kind of emergency, whatever the case may be. He has hired sound engineers to deal with the sound and to be able to control it. They are setting up speakers in a format to minimize the impact on neighbors. The level of detail he provided me with was a degree of angle that the speaker will point down, and I'm sure Terry would be able to share that as well. So quite a lot of detailed thought gone into it. My understanding from Jeremy is that there is a cap on ticket sales of 500, but that they're expecting 320, including staff and artists. That's an approximate number because ticket sales are still open. I do know that there was some kind of contradictory information floating around, so I think final numbers are going to be important for us to know. They've indicated that there is ample parking on site, plus additional land that is being cleared because the owners of the lodge would like to expand it, to be able to host other events there in the future. They've dealt with, any sewage requirements by having porta potties planned to be on site. There will be some food on site, but not sold, and there will be no alcohol sales on site at all. Admissions will include checking IDs at the gate because they are requiring you be 19 or over to attend, and both female and male bodyguards to check purses and persons for any kind of contraband type of thing. And they do plan to cordon off the area to prevent any non-ticketed attendees. So the site layout plan, I think, is available for us to look at. Insurance is in place. And Jeremy also indicated that from any, if there are any cans, although they have a no glass policy for the site for the festival, if there are any cans or any recyclables picked up, they were interested in donating the proceeds from that to maybe our local food banks, which I think would be a welcome gesture. And they've offered to provide us with a tour of the site as soon as Friday, he said, or at another time that is convenient to us if we're interested in going to take a look. It is the first time an EDM type festival is being planned for Richmond County, to my knowledge. So it might, I thought that might be of interest to councillors. Section 4 of our noise bylaw states that no person shall engage in any activity between the hours of 12 a.m. midnight and 7 a.m. which disturbs or intends to disturb the peace and the tranquility of a neighborhood to which the bylaw applies. But further, Section 8 does note that an exemption from the application of the bylaw may be considered or not considered by Municipal Council as it deems appropriate prior to the event starting. The bylaw states that in terms, if we do give an exemption, we need to consider things like the social or commercial benefit of the proposed activity, that, the views of any residents which may be expressed, the proposed hours of operation of the noise-making activity, the proposed duration of the subject activity, and the level of noise anticipated to be generated by the activity. And I think on a couple of those points, we know that, in terms of the economic benefit, social benefit, we are a community of festivals, and, it certainly will have potentially have a tourism impact in a positive way. I can't speak to social impact. I don't really know about that one, but I do know that we've also received a piece of anonymous correspondence that outlines concern from someone who has stated that they're a property owner in that region, and they seem, the correspondence, I think, outlined a lot of the concerns that, frankly, were questions that I was asking Jeremy about in my communication with him. The proposed hours, the impacted hours according to our bylaw would be from 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., which is the time for which we would need to issue an exemption and focus our discussion. And the impacted dates would be 3 days. It would be the 17th, 18th, and 19th of June.
So number one is under the noise bylaw, the application, the exception needs to be received within 30 days of
That's
the
true.
event. So I think before we can decide whether or not we would grant an exception, we first as a council will need to determine that we will accept their request.
Yes.
Because it was received,
28 days.
Yeah, exactly,
instead of
right.
the
But I mean,
30
I think,
days, yeah.
for good process, we
Yeah.
need to start with that piece.
That's a good point, yeah.
And so, I suppose we'd need a motion, so I would make a motion that we accept their application. And I'm trying to think about the proper terminology, but even the exception for the exception application, right? Because it's not within the right amount of days. And I'd like to give a little bit of reasoning behind that, which is simply because they did do a lot of checking with many of the with many of our partners
Yeah.
that they felt would have informed them of the noise bylaw exemption
Yeah.
requirement.
I was kind of the same mind, that especially considering the amount of work they had done ahead of time to reach out to, police and EDPC and so on, I think it's in our best interest to at least consider it. I think, especially because it's the first time, I think if it were something that missed the deadline, let's say next year, I wouldn't feel the same way about it. But based on, I didn't get any sense that it was missed, other than the fact that they didn't realize it was there.
So I think I have a motion to accept the exemption application from Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Brent Sampson. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, so now the next item to deal with, or the next piece of this item to deal with, would be, to review the request and to determine whether or not we want to issue a noise exemption for June 17th, 18th, and 19th from 12 a.m. until whichever time.
At this point of the council meeting, Richmond councillors got some more details on the Zenergy event from one of its key backers, veteran Newfoundland-based sound engineer and music creator Terry McEachern.
When we reached out, because it was already a registered business, we were told there was no permits in place, and I said we had to reach out to you guys, but then we were told it didn't. I said, make sure you get an email. We did do that, but now we're here, and I thank you very much for hearing us. And so electronic music, at one point in time, you hear rock and roll on station. It's a big deal now. People listen to it. This is what I perform. I had a residency in Austria, played Berlin, Thailand, all over the place, but there's a group of people who appreciate it. So what we want to do is have a transparent gathering of people. We say 300. If we hit 250, we're doing really good. It's a first-year festival. We just want to make sure it's safe, so we've been trying to do our due diligence to make sure we have the right security, the medics, plans in place, and stuff like that, right? So, I mean, people come through, they buy water, they buy food, and it helps out the economy a little bit. And I'm hoping we can work together to develop this and And maybe down the road, if it does get bigger, great. But for this year, we're looking at probably 250, 300 people. As far as the noise goes, reverberation is the big thing. A lot of people have festivals, they want the biggest sound systems, they want it up on racks. We're doing the opposite. We're getting a good sound system, we're building racks for it that will slant it down towards the ground on a 30% angle and away from the neighbors, which case it's pointed towards a mountain. The speakers are going to be pointed towards the ground because when you got people on a dance floor and you got mud and dirt, it doesn't reflect as much. So that way you don't have to, it's loud on the dance floor, but when you're down camping 100 yards away, you can't hear it. In which case the neighbors that are 300, 500 yards, kilometer down the road, they shouldn't be able to hear it. That being said, we're going to work with the cops and the fire department. If we do get complaints at 1 o'clock and we have to turn it down to nothing, and if they even get a next second complaint, we have to turn it right down, go inside. This is all stuff we can do. We'll work with you to make sure everyone's happy at the end of the day and we get no fines and complaints. So it's pretty much it. I know this is about noise, but I mean, we're going to do our due diligence as organizers to make sure it's safe and the sound's at a reasonable level. And we take our preparation to make sure that we don't get any complaints to begin with. But if we could do that 2 or 3 o'clock, that'd be amazing. You know, we have a lot of performers coming from New Brunswick and Halifax and different areas. A lot of people who haven't been down this way, and my first impression was like, why have I not been here?
So you mentioned the 17th, 18th, 19th. This calendar is shifted on here. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. Now, would this apply to 2 a.m. Sunday night as well, or that's what I'm wondering?
No, Sunday
yeah.
night's going to be calm down. You know,
So-
people are out there for the weekend. Sunday night's not going to go into it. I
Okay.
mean, Monday's a work day. People have to rest, and they're on the road for Monday, so it's not
Yeah.
going to be an all-night event on
No,
Sunday now.
So I just want to clarify, the nights you guys are looking for it to be later is the Friday the 17th, Saturday the 18th?
Friday, Saturday, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess the impacted dates then amended would be just the 17th and 18th for the noise bylaw, if you feel that you'd be finishing up before midnight on the,
comfortable with that, yeah.
yeah. So I guess I'm looking to find out from council if you would like to entertain a noise exception, noise bylaw exception on June 17th and 18th, from 12 a.m. to either 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
It's obvious there's been a lot of preparation here and a lot of homework done. As you mentioned, Warden Mombourquette, this county is a county of festivals. I'm sure that not all festivals end at 12:01 a.m., you know what I mean, right? So there's a lot of festivals in this county that go on well into the night, right? So again, this is a great opportunity, I think, and they've done a lot of their homework to take the steps to make sure this runs smoothly, right? So I have no problems with this.
When I look at the list that he's provided us and the amount of work that they put into this, it's I think we'd be hard pressed to try and shut them down at 2 o'clock. I know if I was 20 years younger and wanted to go to that party, then I would be really upset that I had to close her down at 2 a.m. So, you know, I believe for a one weekend deal, we can make the exception till 3 a.m. That's my personal opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that as well. I think there was a lot of things that were brought up by our anonymous resident, and I had similar concerns, but the reality is they've dealt with all of those concerns, and none of those have anything to do with the noise bylaw.
That's right.
So even if any of those things were not, we're asked to deal with the bylaw exception. And so in my opinion, we make bylaw exceptions, I'm sure, for other events throughout the county, and this one should not be any different. I'm sure we have one for Godstock. I'm sure we have, you know.
I don't think
Pirate
we're
Day?
approached.
Well, we probably should. Anyway,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess all I'm saying is that we would make this exception for other events, and so I feel that we should also make it for this one. And I would probably be inclined to go with 3, because that's been the latest time that's been discussed. And obviously, if you can shut her down a bit earlier, that would be welcome to the residents, I'm sure.
Would anyone be prepared to make a motion to provide Epic Trip Productions, sorry, I lost my words there, to provide Epic Trip Productions, Jeremy McLaughlin, with a noise bylaw exemption for June 17th and 18th from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. each night.
I'm willing to make the motion from June 17th to June 20th, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Well, and my only concern was it'd be Sunday night, right? Like especially workday Monday.
Right.
You know, I think that's a much bigger issue than Friday or Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
But so.
But you're right, Councillor Brent, the
Yeah, I
dates would
guess
actually be the 18th and 19th.
The dates would, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
Exemption from
Saturday
12 to
morning,
3.
Sunday morning.
I guess we'd be looking for a motion then to provide an exemption to the noise bylaw for Inspiration Point Lodge and Epic Tours, Epic Trip Productions on June 18th and 19th from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Digdon. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Okay, any further discussion on that item? So the only thing I just want to say is thank you again to Terry for attending this evening and answering some of our questions. That was really helpful.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you as well for coming out tonight and just hope everything goes safely and, yeah.
And with that, Richmond councillors unanimously approved a noise bylaw exemption on June 18th and 19th between midnight and 3 a.m. for the Zenergy Music Festival and its partners, Epic Trip Productions and Inspiration Point Lodge on West Bay Road. And there you have it, folks. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you again to my interview guests this week, Greg Morrow, Jason Aucoin, and Amanda Mombourquette. And thanks to my colleagues at Telile Community Television, Cody, Pardy, Nick Boudreau, and Becky Bourinot, for filming and formatting the Richmond Municipal Council footage that you saw in this week's episode. If you have anything to say about what you've seen over the past hour, or you'd just like to offer suggestions for future editions of Telile 24/7, you can contact me directly or contact Telile Community Television in Arishat. And don't forget to follow Telile on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you for tuning in to Telile 24/7 this week. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.